Okay, so let's move through the week 6 problems now. Number 1 says Ms. Davis drew a box and whisker plot to display data about the number of hours her piano students practiced last month, as shown below. What whole number best represents the median number of hours her students practiced playing the piano last month? This, as they say, is a box and whisker plot problem. Box and whiskers are relatively easy in that, first of all, what you're going to recognize is that here you have a box and then you have some whiskers on the side. That's why it's called a box and whisker plot. Now, they ask you the median number. Median means middle. And so even though this box and whisker plot has no numbers, what you'll quickly come to realize is that the median is just the line in the middle. And what number is under here? Here's 30, here's 40. The line in between would be 35. So your answer is very simply, the median is 35. Number 2, Martha's sister is creating patterns using pattern blocks. In the first box, she made the following cat head pattern from 1 trapezoid and 2 triangle blocks. In the second box, as she continues to make a pattern with more blocks, the perimeter increases. They give you a table, and then they ask which equation would produce the values in the table. Well, in order to do this, this is basically, if you want to call it trial and error, you can kind of say that. And there are a couple of things you want to keep in mind. First of all, you generally want to start with 1 as x, but that should never be your final determination as to what the answer is. And you definitely never want to start with 0 as your first x. And what you're going to basically do is plug each of the numbers into this equation or into these 4 equations to see which one works. You'll pretty simply and easily see which ones don't pan out. So let's start with x being 1. So if x is 1, the perimeter should be 7. If I go to A, we says if x is 1, 1 plus 6 is indeed 7. So this might be an answer choice. So since that worked the first time, now let's look at 2. Well, if x is 2, then 2 plus 6 is supposed to be 12. But that's not true because 2 plus 6 is only 8. So this does not work because 2 plus 6 is supposed to be 12, but it's not. It's 8. All right, so that doesn't work. So now we've eliminated A. We look at B the same way. If x is 1, then 1 times 2, so 2 times 1 is 2 plus 6. We know that that is 8. The y is supposed to be 7, so that doesn't work. For C, when x is 1, 6 times 1 is 6, and 6 minus 2 is 5. So that doesn't work because y is supposed to be 7. So finally, when you look at D, if x is 1, 5 times 1 plus 2, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So that works. Then you look at 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. So that works again. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 gives you 17, and 5 times 4 plus 2 gives you 22. So we confirm that the answer is D. Okay, so let's look at another one that's similar to the first question, number 2. It says the price of a daily pass to Adventure World is shown in the table below. X represents the number of 5-year periods since 1995. Which expression could be used to determine the price of a daily pass in 2020? So what this is actually doing is asking you, can you identify where the pattern is? It says if X represents the number of 5-year periods since 1995. All right, well, in 1995, the number 5-year period since 1995 would be 0 because no time has passed yet. But in 2000, there has been 5 years, which means that there has been one 5-year period. 2000 and 2005 is another 5 years, so that is 2 5-year periods. And 2005 and 2010 is another 5 years, so that is 3 5-year periods. So really, this problem is asking you to compare 0 and 12, 1 and 20, 2 and 28, and 3 and 36 to find the equation. Now, again, that goes back to the same idea before, using your calculator and checking to see which ones, or doing the math in your head, obviously, which equation gives you the same pattern. So let's start. Now, we said in general, you want to avoid 0 as a final concluder because it's pretty easy. You'll see here for C and D, 6 times 0 is 0, plus 12 is 12. And 8 times 0 is 0, plus 12 is also 12. That's why 0 is not really a good one to use to test whether or not this pattern is accurate. But we can confirm, though, using 0, that A is not the answer, because 0 plus 52 is supposed to be 12 when it's not. And in the same way here, 4 times 0 plus 36 is also not 12, so we know that those are not true. So that's really the only reason you can use 0. Now, for the rest of them, I would recommend you using a number like 2. So if we used, well, let's say we start from 1. So 1 times 6 is 6, plus 12 is supposed to be 20. But it's not. 1 times 6 is 6, plus 12 is only 18. So this is not the answer. So by process of elimination, we have confirmed that the answer is D, but let's make sure we got the rest of it anyway. So we look at 2. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 12 is 28. Yes. 3 times 12 is, 3 times 8 is 24, plus 12 is 36. So yes, we confirmed that that is the answer. And that's all you have to do for that. All right, so number 3 takes a concept that's relatively simple, tries to make it a little tricky, but if you really have a fair depth of knowledge of using slopes, then we should be able to do this. This is a function is represented in the graph below. Which of the following situations could be represented by the function shown in the graph? Now, we basically can figure out the equation for this graph, but the things that are critical is that we know we start at 0, so B is 0. And we also know that in every case, if we follow the pattern from this clearly identifiable point to this one, so from here to here, you rose, the rise was 2, and the run was from 0 to 1, which is 1. So what we're supposed to do is say which of these scenarios will also give you a slope of 2 over 1. Again, this is rise over run. So it says for every girl in the class, every girl Y, so this column representing Y, girls, there are twice as many boys. So that would mean twice as many when Y was 2, then X should have been twice as many, which should have been 4, which that doesn't follow that pattern. And the more streamlined way to do it is to say, we know that rise is the Y, so rise over run, rise is the Y's, and run is the X. So if the rise, so if there's every one girl is 1, then there are twice as many boys, so that should be 2. That's 1 over 2, not 2 over 1. That's not the answer. When we examine G the same way, when we examine G the same way, the Atlanta airport has 3 planes landing. So again, rise over run. 3 planes landing for every 6 planes taking off. So Y over X, 3 planes, 3 over 6, which interestingly enough simplifies to be 1 over 2, which again is incorrect because we need 2 over 1. H, for every raffle ticket sold, X, the cost is $1. So rise up and run. This time they try to trick you a little bit by giving you the raffle ticket sold first. But we know that the run is always the X. So it's still going to be at the bottom. But the cost is still 1 anyway. So it really didn't matter. So 1 over 1 is 1. But again, it's not 2 over 1, which is what we're looking for. So now, by process of elimination, we already know the answer. So you're going to have to pay very close attention to understand why this final answer is the answer based solely off of mathematical terms. So this answer choice I says the total amount of Carol's mortgage X is 1/2 of Sam's rent. So there's a relationship here that says that X is 1/2 of Y. Okay, so we expected that if X was 1, then Y, that should have been 1/2 of 2. In order for X to be 1, Y has to be 2, so 1/2 of 2 would be 1. And does that work out? Yes, it does. If Y is 2 and X is 1, this statement is true. So what we basically did was we knew which ones to get rid of because of the rise and run were wrong, and then we took the last bit of information and confirmed that if X is 1/2 of Y, if X is 1, or if, let's say, Y was 2, then 1/2 of 2 should be 1. And does that work? Yes, it does.